He's not gonna make it.
Yeah, he is.
God, he is. We don't leave a ball.
That's your army.
But you do. You always get blamed. Freshmen get blamed for everything. It's just how it works.
Yeah, no, for real. We left out 8 baseballs.
You probably did.
Freshman JV scrimmage.
Well, then you're gonna.
8 miles.
Okay. All right. This is all about solving quadratics. Anything with a square in it. Now, the first thing we do is factoring. I honestly think this way is a little bit easier. Okay, but that's just me in some cases. Some quadratic equations cannot be easily solved by factoring, so we're going to do a different method. So square roots can be used to solve those. You take the square root of both sides. Now we're going way back here, so from lesson 1-5, every positive number has 2 square roots, one positive and one negative. What that goes from is the square root of 9 is 3, because you're saying 3 times 3 is 9, but you can also make it to be negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 is also 9. Okay, I think you got to agree. I did. So I think you got to agree with me with that. 3 times 3 is 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. But when you hit square root of 9 on your calculator, if you got your calculator out, hit square root of 9. What does it give you? It just gives you positive 3. Know where the square root is. So if I'm taking the square root of 9, it's just going to say 3. It doesn't say negative 3. That doesn't mean it's not an answer, because you put calculator in the program to give you one answer. Okay? Because we know if you use the parentheses, negative 3 squared gives you back 9. All right, for that. So when you take the square root of a positive number and the sign of the square root is not indicated, you must find both the positive and negative. So we put a little plus or minus to say it's 2 different answers. Okay? So as you see here, the expression plus or minus 3. That's how you read it. Did you find the square root? Press it. Got it? No. Square root. Looks like.
Yeah, it's the X2 thing.
No. It's this thing.
Yeah.
That's not X2.
Yeah, you have to press second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's how this works. All right, we're on that. I think I was going to jump to the examples. I don't think we're going to go over the proper. I got more confusing. Okay, take a look at that first example. So x squared equals 121. You see where it's at?
Yeah.
Okay, you got an x squared. We've been solving equations. Don't write this down to this point. Like x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. We've been solving those. We would factor them. If it doesn't have an x term, it doesn't have a term with an x, it's easier to do square roots. So if you have that, all you have to do is get the x squared by itself. You take the square root of both sides. Okay. So when I take the square root of x squared, I do this. Then you do plus or minus square root of 121. Go ahead and write that down. The square root of x squared is just x. The square root of x squared. Christian, write this down. Now, square root of 121. Some of you know that off the top of your head. Some of you don't. It's going to be 11. Now, your answer has to be plus or minus 11. Because we're saying what number squared equals 121? Well, I know 11 times 11 is, but negative 11 times negative 11 is also 121. So those two answers both work. Okay, we know 11 squared is 121, but also negative 11 squared is, whoa, that's a little bit bigger. 121. So if you just have an x squared, you don't have this x term here. If you get this x squared equals 120, just take the square root. Okay? Honestly, it's a little bit easier.
It's like this. When we solve equations, we always tell you what? Do the opposite operation. So if I have like x plus 7, I want to subtract 7. Well, now I'm squaring something. So the opposite of squaring it is finding the square root. Okay? Same kind of fundamental idea, but we just need to know that squaring and finding square root are also opposites.
And that's it. Well, let's just take a look at some other cases here. Now, x squared equals 0. X squared equals 0. If the x squared is by itself, you take the square root. Plus or minus square root of 0. Square root of x squared is x. All right, I know about half of you already grabbed your calculator. What's the square root of 0? 0.
Oh, I thought it was 2. 1.
Now, what is plus or minus 0? Now, that one there doesn't make sense because it does. Can you have a positive 0 and a negative 0? No, 0 is just 0. So this is the one case where I get one answer. Okay, the other case I had 2 answers. X squared equals negative 16. Tricky, tricky, tricky. X squared equals negative 16. Hold on, Colin. All right, Colin, what are you going to tell me?
Plus or minus 4.
No. Now, tell me why not. Who can tell me why not?
It's not possible because you can't multiply 2 numbers to get a negative.
Yeah, because what's 4 squared, Colin? 16. What's negative 4 squared? 16. You cannot multiply 2 numbers. Now, if you type this in your calculator correctly, and you do square root of negative 16, it says, mine says non-real answer. I don't know what yours says.
Domain error.
Domain error, can't do it. So here's what you put. No real solution. Now that number real is important because down the way, okay, not this year, but later on, you're going to learn that there's something called imaginary numbers that work. So, but I don't want to really confuse you. Okay, I don't want to confuse you. Okay. Now, if you don't have the x squared, but those first 3 were kind of set up like super nice for you. Like all you had to do is take the square root. Fortunately, it's not always that way. So you look at Jordan.
I was gonna see if I could do this.
Sure. What do you think?
Do we have to subtract 7?
Yeah, and this is the key here. There's kind of 2 things. If you don't have an x term, you want to do like Jordan did. Get the numbers on the other side. If there's an x term, that's when we want to set it equal to 0. So you're just going to subtract 7, and you're going to get x squared equals 25. Now life's easy. You just take the square root of both sides. Square root of x squared equals plus or minus square root of 25. X equals plus or minus 5. 5 squared is 25. 25 plus 7 is 32. Negative 5 squared is positive 25. That plus 7 does equal 32. So you got to scan the problem and say, all right, first of all, is there an x squared? Yes. Then from there, is there an x term? If not, get the x squared by itself. All right, so that's what you got for B, right? 16x squared minus 49. All right. No x term, right? How do I set that equal to 0? So I got to, Zach, go ahead.
First, you would add 49.
Okay, I want to add 49. And I get 16x squared equals 49.
And then you would divide 16.
All right, good. Now, don't get too far here. I want you to hold on a half a second. If (49) divided by 16, I'm going to try that. That does not give me a nice number. That is not a nice number, is it? Just leave it as the fraction for right now. So don't write it as 3.0625. So just say x squared equals 49 over 16. We're gonna do that first. Now, we still need to take the what from both sides? Square root. Now, think about this. You're gonna take the square root of both sides. So I get square root of x squared equals plus or minus the square root of 49 over 16. To do this one, you're really taking the square root of 49 over the square root of 16. We can do it that way. What is the square root of 49? 7. What's the square root of 16? It should be 4. Now, because if you want to do them separate. So if I do the square root of 49, I get 7. Square root of 16, I get 4. So my answer is x equals plus or minus 7/4. So you want to look at your numbers and say, I think I know the square root of those numbers. Now here's what's going to happen though. What happens if I hit the square root of 49 divided by 16? I don't think this is. Okay, it's going to give you that. I don't want that. I'm going to just leave it as 7/4. That tells me you know what's going on. Okay, otherwise it tells me you just shoved it in your calculator and whatever it gave you, you wrote down. So you may get a fraction. All right, 36x squared equals 1. Do I got any x's running around in there? No, get the x squared by itself. Only thing I got to do is divide by what? 36. I get x squared equals 1 over 36. Now, when you do that, if you hit 1 divided by 36, it's going to give you some decimal. You just stop. Now, take the square root. What's the square root of 1? It is 1. What's the square root of 36? 6. So I get x equals 1/6. Oh, whoa, I did it wrong. Plus or minus. Plus or minus. That's why we got you here, Preston. Keep me honest. Keep me honest. Thank you.
Good job, Preston.
Plus or minus 1/6. So you got that. All right, Zach, what's the square root, without using your calculator, square root of 12? Is there one? There is one. But it's not a whole number. It's not a whole number. So now we're going to come across situations like that. So if you flip it over on the back. Okay, you flip it over on the back. Not everything has a whole number square root. Joe.
Isn't it 3.5?
3.5. No.
Oh.
No. Because 3.5 squared, 3.5 squared is 12.25. Close. It's close. Okay. All right, now, if you see this, there's nothing we can do with this right now. Okay, so, x squared is by itself. If you want to solve it, you just take the square root. Now, do you know the square root of 15 off the top of your head? No, it wasn't close to, though. Close to 4.
I don't know what I'm saying.
All right, but now I'm going to take the square root of x squared plus or minus the square root of 15, and I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to hit square root of 15. It's going to give me this long decimal. Let's go ahead and round it to the nearest hundredth. Now, all right, now what does that mean? Hundredths. Jordan.
3.87.
It would be 3.87. Joe? Okay, we want 2 decimals, you go to the third. If it's 4 or below, I don't even know what the 5 or above, give it a shove.
Yeah.
What's the other one? 4 or below, let it go. There you go. So since the 2 is below there, so we're going to do x equals plus or minus 3.87. So So this is a hard one, because I teach a night class, on rounding, so, there's a lot of people that come to that, so it's pretty full usually.
Must be a tough life.
It's a difficult subject, okay? All right, now, take a look at this one. Negative 3x squared plus 90 equals 0. Do you see, there's no x term in here, so we want to say get x squared by itself. So I'm going to subtract 90.
Oh my God. They did my thing wrong.
I'm going to divide by negative 3. Now, on the other side, when we divided by a number, we left it as a fraction because it didn't come out nice. Go ahead and divide this. If you know what it is in your head, fine, but if not, at least try it. What is 90 divided by 3? Negative 90 divided by negative 3. Jordan?
3.
It's going to be a whole number. It's going to be 30.
I did the thing, dude. 24 hours. Dude, that is.
Now take your square root.
I'm having one of those Astro. It's like my brain's bleeding.
You got brain bleed?
Yeah.
Okay, now just use your calculator. Let everybody touch up their column.
Yeah.
See if we can work on how good we're at rounding.
Not everyone's as smart as you.
No, that's just you.
Don't berate me on that.
So we got the square root.
We got it. Right.
Get square root squared. Divide the square root.
What do you get? Perfect.
So what number?
Good. All right, Colin, what you got?
Square root.
Colin, what you got?
X equals plus or minus 5.48.
Okay. There you go. That's very good rounding. You do not need to take my night course. So square root of 30 is 5 point. See the 477 rounds it up. 5.48. All right, good.
Oh, Santa.
Oh,
Drill.
they were not going to be nice to you. All right,
I was up to 4 in the morning last night.
4.
Yeah. Couldn't fall asleep.
This is not
I
fun.
was up to like 9:30.
Watching Star Wars.
Dude, I was up
You should have just watched one of our old algebra videos.
Yeah, that puts you to
I
sleep.
got 2
I
hours.
thought it was like 9:30.
Yeah, did you? Me too. All right, 0 equals 90 minus x squared.
Why is there a negative x squared?
Because there can be.
That is dumb.
Can it actually be?
Yes.
Yeah, because we've had problems with the negative in front of it. But now you got to be smarter than the problem.
It's so dumb.
Zane,
Is there no real answer?
There is a real effort.
there could be, but in this case, that could be an answer, but in this case, there
Think about it like this. If we had 90 minus X, could we do that?
No.
Yes.
What?
Wait, isn't it like 9 or 10?
90 minus.
You don't even know what x is.
Thanks.
That's
I know what X is.
Now, hey, you said I don't like an x squared. How do you make it positive?
I knew that. That's exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure
Wait,
you did.
hold
I
on.
swear.
Hold on.
Yeah, I just did dumb.
Hold
Well,
on.
if you swore, I would write it down.
Shut up.
Okay.
I did the wrong way. I'm not lying.
Isn't it the same if you subtract 90 and divide by -1?
Yes,
Yes.
but I'm saving a step. I'm trying to help save some pencil lead. Okay. So if you just add x squared, now Colin said, can I subtract 90 and divide by -1? Yeah, you can do that. But this is going to be a little bit easier. X squared equals plus or minus the square root of 90. And that's going to be plus or minus, don't tell me. Square root of 90. 8.91.
Wrong.
9.
9.49.
9.49.
Dang.
What do you think your job is?
Want to make you feel good about yourself.
I'm sure.
Now, Zane.
Go back up.
Not that I can do it,
Alright, last one here. Zane, now you're on board here. Okay, because now in this case here,
I'm thinking of the wrong one, that's why. That's the other reason. You can't.
He's doing it right now.
You can't help it.
We're not dealing with rocket science. Okay.
Should the number be half negative and half not?
No, you're either one or the other. I gotta go there.
Then I use the
Hey, all right, listen up here while you're all rambunctious.
Lie down.
Hey, listen. Kind of the key thing with these last couple is when you're getting this X squared by itself, you're not gonna know till you really get done whether it's gonna be no solution or we'll have an answer. So you can't just stay here and say, oh, it's gonna be no solution because I got a negative, or even if it equals a negative. Once you get the X squared by itself, now at this point, when you start to do this, now you get X equals no real solution. Okay, so don't just stop ahead of the game. Now, we're not gonna have time to do this one. We'll hit this one tomorrow. Page 639, 17 through 33 odd, 36. 36. Hey, have a good start to the 9 weeks. Keep up on this homework. Start out with a bunch of 10s out of 10s. Okay, don't get behind. Don't get behind.
No, Christian, I would drop it, but you're so fast.